the vacation time coming after working all year down at Big Roy's heating and plumbing. So one night when
all right, Matt, we have come to the end of UHF, and I believe, Nature Trail to Hell is like a 5-minute song, but I think that this is truly kind of the beginning of what would become a trend in the late 90s and throughout Al's career of ending his albums with these epic length songs.
Yeah.
Like,
this is definitely a real, I believe at this point in his career, this is the longest song he has ever done.
Yeah.
And it still remains one of the longest songs he's ever done.
Yeah. This walks so that Albuquerque could run a decade later.
It's very, very true. Yeah, exactly. You're right. Like Nature Trail to Hell is a pretty epic closer, but this is epic in a different way.
Yeah, because
this is like an American epic.
Yeah, well, because you go into this song and then, or like I said, you go into this song and then 10 years later we get Albuquerque.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Albuquerque is kind of the true start of this becoming a reoccurring way that he wraps up his albums. Because Albuquerque is followed by Poodle Hat that has, is that Genius in France?
Genius in France.
Genius in France, which is like an 8-minute Frank Zappa send up.
Mm-hmm.
Straight Outta Linwood wraps up with, I'm scrolling through here to see just to
Trapped
confirm.
in the Drive-Thru?
No, don't download this
don't
song.
Don't download this song. I forgot.
Trapped in the
That's right.
Drive-Thru and don't download the song. Now, don't download this song is only 4 minutes, but it has a similar epic, like...
It's an anthem.
Yeah, it's intended to sound like something big and important. And then I think Alpocalypse has stopped forwarding that crap to me.
Also, a similar to Don't Download This Song type of epic.
Yeah, which is, again, like a 6-minute long song written in the style of Jim Steinbeck. And then I don't think it happens on Mandatory Fun. I think Mandatory
Fun ends with Jackson Park Express.
Oh, yeah, Jackson Park Express, which is probably the closest song that you could compare this to.
That's right.
And you know what? I'm going to bring up something right now, actually.
Let's do it.
If you look up Biggest Ball of Twine in Minnesota, it will say that it is a style parody of Harry Chapin. And if you look up Jackson Park Expressway, it'll say it's a style parody of Cat Stevens. I think those need to be swapped.
Okay.
Jackson Park Express is almost note for note the song Taxi by Harry Chapin. This feels like a Cat Stevens song to me way more.
Let me expand on that while also addressing something very controversial that we talked about last week.
Okay.
Which is that the closest reference that I have found to this song is that this song is a style parody. It is not a direct parody. But if you want to hear what I think the most likely singular reference is for this track, it is a song a song by Harry Chapin that is called 30,000 Pounds of Bananas.
It was just after dark when the truck started down the hill that leads into Scranton, Pennsylvania, carrying 30,000 pounds of bananas.
Oh, okay. So bananas is the fruit that you will not
Now
do.
I am here to tell you guys, just be totally honest, I hate bananas.
Matt, I have something very exciting to tell you. I have maybe accidentally eaten a banana pancake while not realizing it and pushed forward on it. I also do not get the appeal of bananas at all. Yes, I said appeal while talking about bananas. But yeah, not a banana fan. Give me some peaches and apples and plums and pears all day, but keep those goddamn bananas away from me.
It is everyone in the band, everyone who's ever been in the band or who has traveled with me knows it is very, very, it's the smell that makes me instantly feel sick.
Yes.
I hate it so much. I, as politely as I can, request that there not be any bananas on our tour bus or in the van or in the dressing room. I don't really care what people eat. I just don't want to see it or smell it. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm really sharing something deep about myself with you all today.
This is the pull that comes from being the second most tenure member of a band.
For many, many years, I actually didn't want to tell people this about me because I was so nervous, especially as a teenager, because it happened to me a couple times, that people knowing this just meant that they were going to use it against me.
Yeah. No.
And I had, a couple of people found out and then started like walking towards me holding bananas. And I just was like, this isn't,
No, that's cruel. No, I would never.
This is not funny.
No.
It's not a joke.
Banana flavored stuff is disgusting to me. Like all of it's, I am actually, there is nothing that I find weird about this. I thought that you were going to say pickles because they talk about pickled wieners a whole lot in this. And I'm also very anti-pickle.
So that's the connection. Now you guys know this thing about me. We're all very close. We've gotten to know each other very well. And that's why I trust you guys with this very, very private information.
Yeah, this is like a nuclear.
Oh my God. This is, I'm giving away my nuclear codes because if you show up with a banana, it's going to go down. It will be
you will be the first person ever physically removed from a Wheatus show.
It's going to be brutal. It's going to be brutal. But anyway, I would recommend, and maybe like a small snippet of it, maybe you can insert it, Matt, but if not, people go and listen to 30,000 pounds of bananas. The structure of the song is almost exactly the same. And it has that same like doom, 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 like that kind of like walking very, like it is really, really close. So maybe he just hit Harry Chapin more than once. It's entirely possible.
Are you familiar with the song Taxi? I believe it was one of his, it obviously wasn't his highest charting song because Cats in the Cradle exists. But
I don't immediately recognize that. I don't know it by name.
It's literally a song written from the perspective of a taxi cab driver talking about his route, which is why, to me, that's Jackson Park Express.
Right.
At its core. And I'm just also, like I said, I am a massive Cat Stevens fan. Massive Cat Stevens fan. So I feel like if it was a direct Cat Stevens reference, I would have been like, oh, this is pulling from like this song or this song. But that's not the case. In fact, it wasn't until years later when I heard Taxi for the first time because my uncle's band covered it that I was like, this is Jackson Park Express.
They both do. And it's funny because this song feels, as much as this feels like an epic in its own way, Jackson Park Express is grandiose in this bigger way. It's got the string section. Like it's a gorgeous song. I would not describe this song as gorgeous, but they do have that similar thing of like the quirky, like a singer-songwriter telling this very long story.
There's such a weird trend of this from the 70s. Because isn't this also about the time period where you're getting the 70s singer-songwriters? Isn't that where you get like the Alice Restaurant Massacre or whatever it is that like one radio station plays every Thanksgiving?
Yep.
That's just a rambling story for like 13 minutes.
Yeah, no, we were really, even another song, it doesn't exactly fit this, but American Pie, which we're going to talk about later, is another like this. People were like, boy, were they really given a lot of space to express themselves. It's hard to imagine. I guess a couple years ago now, there was all the radio stations were playing that really long version of the Taylor Swift song, and that was like a big deal that it was like this enormously long song getting radio play. And that's great. I love it. But yeah, talk about like a moment in time where we were more patient, weren't we?
Well, we're talking about in the 70s. That's also when AM radio was kind of more popular than FM to a certain extent. And you had a lot of album-oriented radio, too, where it was like, we're just going to play Boston in its entirety. Hang out with us for 40 minutes while we listen to both sides of this vinyl.
To just play it, yeah. But for this song to be what it is, which is this like long, drawn-out story that kind of like it meanders around, and it does fit the vibe of all of these songs, but like what could be more perfect to goof that with than this what should be a boring ass family road trip that he has turned into this like they're telling it as if it's a saga when nothing happens.
It's literally what he is describing is like the boring version of National Lampoon Vacation.
That's it. I wrote down Vacation because it feels so much like that. Yes, exactly. Like, and the comedy in Al's is that there kind of is almost no comedy. Yeah. It's just how impressed they are with how boring everything is.
Yeah, it's the most minor things that delight them. So we talked about this before we hit record. For a song like this, I think the only appropriate thing is we just got to go verse by verse on this and talk about our feelings, because the music, for the most part, the music's fine, but it doesn't do anything too much where you're like, oh, I need to call out this cool little blank.
Yeah.
It's very much a lyrics song over anything else.
It's generally a groove that repeats, and there's some like little moments of chord changes. There's some interesting musical moments in here that mostly are because of he's trying to squeeze a lot of lyrics into this.
Yeah.
There's a great marker. This is just a little brief music nerd tangent. A great marker of someone who is a lyrical songwriter is that when you try to learn the song, the chord changes are at odd times and they don't make sense. And you have these weird, like, oh, that's a measure of 5 beats and this is a measure of 7 beats and this one's short. And it's because the lyrics are everything, right? It's not about the song. It's not about the music as much as it's about like telling this story and getting these words out in the way that makes the most sense. If you listen to like Johnny Cash songs, Roy Orbison, any of those guys like have incredibly strange musical structure, and it's because they wrote incredible lyrics and they were just like, well, we just got to figure out a way to make these awesome words fit in the context of this song.
Yeah.
And Al does it all over this track in a way that is super, super satisfying if you pay that much attention to it. And if you don't pay that much attention to it, it just feels super smooth and natural.
Yeah. All right, so here we go. Verse 1. He says, well, I had a 2-week vacation time coming after working all year down at Big Roy's Heating and Plumbing. So one night, when my family and I were gathered around the dinner room table, I said, kids, if you could go anywhere in this great big world, now where'd you like to go to? And they said, Dad, we want to see the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. They picked the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. Nothing too crazy in there. We got a nice slant rhyme right out the gate with coming and plumbing.
I did note, apparently, someone found there's an amazing thread here. I'm going to try to hit as many of them as I can, but a group of Al fans on a forum way back in the early 2000s dissected this song to an incredible degree and tried to find references to all these places that Al mentions. And apparently there is evidence to indicate that there was indeed a Big Roy's Heating and Plumbing, which is just, I don't know. I feel good knowing that that's real.
That's delightful. That is, I feel better living my life knowing that.
Yes.
All right. So then they said, so the very next day we loaded up the car with potato skins and pickled wieners, crossword puzzles, Spider-Man comics, and Mama's homemade rhubarb pie. Pulled out of the driveway, and the neighbors, they all waved goodbye. And so began our 3-day journey. We picked up a guy holding a sign that said, Twine ball or bust. He smelled really bad, and he said his name was Bernie. So, just nonsense here, but loving all of it. Like, it's so ridiculous. The pickled wieners, I think, comes up 2 more times in this song. Spider-Man comics getting a nice shout out there. And Bernie will be crucial to the plot of this story as we continue down this demented story. Did the forum have any information for us at this point?
No, not about Bernie specifically. I do love the fact, like, have you ever had rhubarb pie?
So here's a funny thing. I have never had rhubarb pie, but as I'm sure you know, and I'm sure many listeners have maybe learned this over time, my favorite band of all time is a band called Five Iron Frenzy. And they had a song on one of their albums called Ugly Day. Mm-hmm. And it's literally like, it's a catchy ska song. And the lyrics are like, ugly days, sun is shining, every cloud's got some silver lining. Like, it's a very poppy song. Then they put out I don't even know what to call it. It was like 50 tracks, but it was like half the tracks were like 15 to 20 seconds long. Like, it was just like they just fucked around and wrote a bunch of silly stuff. And they parodied their own song and rewrote Ugly Day as a song called Rhubarb Pie. And it was
really?
It was rhubarb pie in the summer, rhubarb pie made by my mother.
Wow.
So that was my first reference to rhubarb pie I ever learned, was a parody by Five Iron Frenzy of their own song.
I love that. I mean, it's funny, as I've referenced before, my wife is from England. And I think rhubarb pie and just rhubarb in general is way more common over there. You can find it here, but I did not grow up ever having anything with rhubarb in it. And I still joke with her. She will make like apple and rhubarb or strawberry and rhubarb. It's usually in desserts and pies and crumbles and stuff like that. And I will joke that like I love it and I've had it many times and it's delicious, but also I still couldn't tell you what it tasted like.
I also was going to ask, what even is a rhubarb?
It's like a root vegetable. It almost looks like stalks of celery or like something like that. Like it's or chard. Like it has that sort of a thing, and it's a little bit sweet, but it's also mostly like floral and fragrant. See, again, I really have no idea how to describe it. Like it has like an essence that's similar to like hibiscus or something like that. Like very, very, very light, which is why it's usually paired with other fruits because those are sweeter and more like specific. I like the fact that Al referenced rhubarb pie because I think he probably said it through the lens of it being like a dorky, weird, odd choice. Like who would ever go out with rhubarb pie in America? But depending on where you live in the world, it might be reasonably common. So I wanted to throw that out there. Even though I can't tell you anything about rhubarb, I'm a fan and I recommend you check it out.
So next verse we jump into, he said, I put in a Slim Whitman tape and my wife put on a brand new hairnet. The kids were in the back seat jumping up and down, yelling, "Are we there yet?" And all of us were joined together in one common thought as we rolled down the long and windy interstate in our 53 DeSoto. We're going to see the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. We're heading for the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. First thing that jumps out to me, Slim Whitman.
Slim Whitman.
If I recall correctly, is that who kills the aliens in Mars Attacks?
You are exactly right. Slim Whitman, known for his yodeling. They play it in the movie Mars Attacks, and it's what destroys all the aliens.
I am so glad that I did not have to research that and that was just living in my brain.
Well done. Well done.
But
Slim
otherwise,
Whitman back in the day also was for many years, the touring opening act for Elvis Presley.
Oh, wow.
So he was quite notable for a little while, although always had, like never the headliner, you know what I mean? But like had some success. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, like you said, we're kind of describing just what you would imagine the kids would be like, say, going to Disney World, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the absurd, over-the-top celebration of something that's very mundane. But I think we're about to get where this song starts to go off the rails a little bit more.
This family they're so quaint. I mean, aside from the fact that they're going to the biggest ball of twine, they're leaving with Slim Whitman records and rhubarb pie. Like these people could not be more. It's a weird combination of like, because I was just going to describe them as basic, but that's not even fair because it's like, who would do this? Like it's not basic. They're weird, incredibly offbeat choices. And they are just like, again, describing all of this stuff as if it's the most normal thing in the world. It's like, of course, we're going to go see the biggest ball of twine, but we need our Slim Whitman tapes.
Yeah. Guys, don't you understand? It is the biggest ball of twine.
Exactly. Yeah.
So... we couldn't wait to get there, so we drove straight through for 3 whole days and nights. Of course, we stopped for more pickled wieners now and then. The scenery was just so pretty. Boy, I wish the kids could have seen it. But you can't see out the side of the car because the windows are completely covered with the decals of all the places where we've been. We'll go into the next verse where he lists all the places they've also been. Actually,
yes.
Like Elvis-orama, the Tupperware Museum, the Bullweevil Monument, and Cranberry World, the Shuffleboard Hall of Fame, Poodle Dog Rock, and the Mecca of albino squirrels. We've been to ghost towns and steam parks, wax museums, and a place where you can drive through the middle of a tree, seen alligator farms and tarantula ranches, but there's one thing we've got to see. Which, obviously, the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. So here's my question for you. On that forum, how many of those things actually exist that he listed?
Elvis-orama.
Nice.
Real. Tupperware Museum. Real. The Bullweevil Monument. Real. Cranberry World. Real. Shuffleboard Hall of Fame. Real.
Jesus.
Poodle Dog Rock. Real. The Mecca of albino squirrels. Unclear. Apparently, incredibly, according to this reference, it actually could apparently people are not sure. It could refer to a couple different places, which gives, I don't even know what to say to that. But people seem to think it's most likely a place in the town of Olney, Illinois, which describes itself as the home of the white squirrels.
Okay.
And that's one of their roadside attraction spots there.
Okay,
Olney,
yeah.
Illinois. I've never been, but if you're interested,
What a mediocre name for a town.
I know, right? Olney, Illinois.
I mean, obviously, ghost towns, theme parks, and wax museums are all real things. I'm pretty
Yes.
sure I've seen pictures of places where you can drive through like a big ass tree that they.
I think that
out.
there's a spot. I mean, it would be. I think it's in California, like part of the redwood forest or the Sequoia National Forest. That there is a tree that has the gap in it. I drove through there once, but did not get to do that. And in fact, I did hear. I think that might have actually something might have happened to that tree, and now they're not letting people do it anymore because it's too dangerous. But that definitely was a thing as well. Yes.
Something I do want to call out here. I've realized this is not a thing that maybe 10 years ago I would have claimed, but it's been true my whole life. I love wax museums. I don't think I realized that because I've never been to an authentic wax museum. But one of the first horror movies that I watched as a kid was The House of Wax with Vincent Price. Absolutely like charmed the pants off of me. And similarly to how Al's kids in this song make him go to the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota, if my family traveled anywhere that I found out that there was a Ripley's Believe It or Not wax museum that we could stop by, you better believe we were going in there so I could look at wax statues of like the world's tallest man and like the alligator boy. I think it's why I love the first like 10 minutes of House of a Thousand Corpses so much, is like I would have 1,000,000,000% been sucked into everything that is happening in that gas station chicken / museum of oddities.
Agreed. Absolutely, yes. No, that's for sure. I would be like, oh, this is amazing. We got to check this out.
All right, so back into the song. Here we go. We're getting there now. So we crossed the state line about 6:39, and we saw the sign that said Twine Ball, exit 50 miles. The kids were so happy, they started singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall for the 27th time of that day. So we pulled off the road at the last chance gas station, got a few more pickled wieners and a diet chocolate soda. On our way to see the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota, we're going to see the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. I do have to say, I love how much rhyme is in this with state line, 39, sign, twine, 27th time. Like there's a lot of cool, like, I don't even know what that's even referred to, where it's like just rhymes within rhymes within rhymes. It's something that you point out a lot with like someone like Eminem. Eminem will have like a ton of quick rhyming words in one sentence.
A very dense rhyming structure. Yeah. It's true. It's very, very satisfying. And also, I'd be remiss if I did not mention that this is yet another reference to the number 27. In Al's catalog, which just that list is gonna grow and grow and grow. But there's a hidden number 27.
Well,
just real quick, imagine being in a car and a group of children start singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall for the 27th time
in 3 days.
In 3 days.
I love that part of this song. The premise of this song
for the
is
27th time that day.
Oh, that day, Jesus.
That day.
The other thing that I think I missed the first time listening to this, is like they are not even stopping for hotels. This is a
they're driving through.
3-day straight drive to get to this ball of twine. He has 2 weeks of vacation time.
But they got to spend that time at the ball of twine, Matt. They can't like waste time at hotels.
Fair. All right, so you brought up the magic number for Al, which is 27.
Yes.
The very next sentence, our mutual friends punchline, have their magical number show up. Because finally at 7:37, early Wednesday evening, as the sun was setting in the Minnesota sky, out in the distance, the horizon it appeared to me, like a vision before my unbelieving eyes. We parked the car and walked with all-filled reverence towards the glorious, huge, majestic sphere. I was just so overwhelmed by its sheer immensity. I had to pop myself a beer. Yes, on these hollow grounds, open 10 to 8 on weekdays, in a little shrine under a makeshift pagoda.
Yeah.
There sits the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. I tell you, it's the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. I didn't intend to do what I just did, but that literally reads like an epic poem.
It absolutely does.
Verse,
It absolutely does. And yeah, as we said before, they haven't stopped. My God, this man has been driving nonstop. Like, he should be able to pop himself a beer at this point. By all means, buddy. Like, you've really, really put the time in to getting here.
It's literally painting you this image of a man that's about to like fall to his knees, hands raised in front of this ball. Like,
it's a religious experience he is having here. Yes.
And then he begins to question things because he says, "Oh, what on earth would make a man decide to do that kind of thing? Oh, winding up 21,140 pounds of string. What was he trying to prove? Who was he trying to impress? Why did he build it? How did he do it? It's anybody's guess. Where did he get the twine? What was going through his mind? Did it just seem like a good idea at the time?" I love this bridge so much.
I mean, this is like, this is a real, I mean, Al's tackling some big questions here, right? Like this is a real great reflection. And the thing that I like the most about this little like mini verse or stanza or however we want to describe these is these are thoughts that someone would have if they showed up and didn't like this as well.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, this is anybody who saw this would think that and would be like, but he is doing it through this reverence and just like it's the most beautiful thing he has ever seen. But anybody would just like show up and look at this ball of twine and be like, why would someone do this?
It's so funny.
One other just like factual point to note here, winding up 21,140 pounds of string, it is noted that the ball in Darwin is actually just under 18,000 pounds.
Wow.
A little bit of an exaggeration there from Al in the size of the ball of twine. We just, if I'm here for anything, it's to be a fact checker, but just pointing that
out. So we get to the next verse. "Well, we walked up beside it and I warned the kids, now you better not touch it. Those ropes are there for a reason. I said, maybe if you're good, I'll tie it to the back of the car and we can take it home. But I was only teasing." Another great slant rhyme.
Yes.
"When we went to the gift shop and stood in line, I bought a souvenir miniature ball of twine, some window decals, and anything else they'd sell us. I even bought a couple postcards. Greetings from the twine ball. Wish you were here. Won't the folks back home be jealous?"
So I have to call out because I think this is my favorite set of lyrics in the whole song. It is such a great, like, he could not be more of a perfect lame dad, right?
Dorky dad. Oh my God.
The dorky dad. I love that you better not touch it. Those ropes are there for a reason. Like, because that has no rhyme structure at all. Like,
Nope.
That's just dropped. Like the way a dad would be like, hey,
reason rhymes with teasing later on.
Exactly. Yeah. But in that moment, it just kind of comes out of nowhere. And then the whole, like, maybe you're for good, I'll tie it to the back of our car and we can take it home. But I was only teasing.
I just love the idea that they're selling souvenir miniature balls of twine. Like, what?
Souvenir miniature balls.
What a worthless, like, souvenir to have.
And I also noted, it says here that the greetings from the twine ball, wish you were here postcard, you can get now only after the song. They started to make those and sell them after he made this track.
Meanwhile, in New Jersey.
So, Marissa, what talking points do you want to hit on in this week's episode?
Well, Jackie, let's talk about how the film addresses the patriarchy. Ooh, and representation of marginalized people. Ooh, and even philosophical ramifications of good versus evil in horror.
We can point out the triangle boobs, talk about the blood splatter, and the practical effects. And also the male gaze.
My gaze at the males.
Hi-oh! From feminism to fangirling, the Jersey Ghouls cover all the bases of horror from a woman's perspective.
New episodes are uploaded every other Sunday.
Just search Jersey Ghouls to find us on social media and your favorite podcasting app.
Matt, I have to ask you a question because you've seen way more of this beautiful world than I have. Just being in a band, traveling. Have you actually seen the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota?
I have not, but And there's so much to talk about with this song, so I don't know how much time we can get into it. But I have been to a lot of amazing, like, I don't know if you have any real experience with these, but I love a great, like, roadside tourist trap.
So I have been trying to see all 50 states. That has been like a goal of mine.
Yes.
I was doing really great, and then 2020 happened, and that really kind of stalled out my progress. And it's
What
been
happens
hard
in 2020?
But one of my rules was for it to count, for me to have officially been able to say I was in that state, I had to have either A, spent the night there, or B, seen at least 3 things there that I could not see anywhere else. That could be getting a special food that's only
Sure.
available there.
I like that. Yeah,
Going
that's
to a
good.
tourist attraction, whatever. So when I was trying to do all of New England in a weekend, I mean, there were some highs. I went up to the top of Mount Washington. It was amazing. I recommend everybody take the steam train to the top of Mount Washington at
Hell
least
yeah.
once in their life. It's great. But I also saw the world's largest revolving globe.
Hey, I went to Burlington, Vermont, and I saw the world's tallest filing cabinet.
That's why these are like the coolest
So,
things.
so I'm right there with you. I mean, we could reference these in some other way, but I have never been to the ball. I would love to do it. Obviously, even aside from being an Al fan, again, talking about these things, I'm sure a huge part of the reason why I'm drawn to these things is because of Al and because of these songs that have made them seem so charming and endearing. But you got to go to Wall Drug, which I think is in South Dakota. That's an amazing, ridiculous tourist stop. That their big selling point is they have free water.
Okay.
With ice, free ice water.
Okay.
Cool. They also still do, I think you can get a cup of coffee there for a nickel to imitate the old days. It's great. There's south of the border, a arguably problematically Mexican themed rest stop off 95. Also great. And The Thing it's either Arizona or West Texas. I think it's Arizona. The Thing, where all of the signs are like, what is the thing? The Simpsons
Yes.
parody that. And that has been there for forever. And you pay $1 and you get to see The Thing. I'm not going to tell you what the thing is. You got to pay the $1 and you got to see it for yourself. I highly recommend that you do.
So my next 2 states, if I ever get back into this routine, because it is an expensive hobby
It
to
is
just visit
challenging,
states, was that I used to, what really helped was I would, like, in 2019, I had built this plan in my head that I go to San Diego Comic-Con every year. Why not make a road trip out of it and see a couple states? So in 2019, I flew into Seattle, Washington, and then road tripped through Washington and Oregon into California. And then the plan for 2020, again, weird stuff happened, couldn't do it, was to do Arizona, New Mexico into Arizona into California. I believe that's the right order.
Yeah.
Or is it I can never remember which comes first. But yes, and I was going to try to see The Thing.
The Thing is great. The Thing is great.
One of the goals.
You gotta. Some people who are not as fun as me have complained in the past, but I will never let us go past The Thing without stopping.
For $1, like
You
got
gotta
to
stop. I mean,
Yeah.
look, if you don't like The Thing, there's a Dairy Queen attached. You can just hang out there for a few minutes.
Perfect.
We'll be
There we
right
go.
back.
All right, so Bernie finally comes back into the story in the next verse here. It's a quick verse. He says, "We gave our camera to Bernie and we stood by the ball and we all gathered around and said cheese. Then Bernie ran away with my brand new Instamatic, but at least we've got our memories." So Bernie hitchhiked, got to the ball of twine, stole their camera. That's the.
I know it's a shame because it's like, well, I mean, he doesn't seem bothered by it. I mean,
No.
they even make a point again. Bernie ran away with my brand new Instamatic, but at least we got our memories. It was very nice of them to pick up Bernie. It's a shame that Bernie, turned on them. Again, a very vacation style move to add to the song. But I did think, I'm like, wow, that's real friendly of them.
I believe that's a direct plot point from European Vacation.
Exactly, yeah. And I was going to say, Bernie also had to sit through all of those 99 bottles of beer on the wall.
Yeah,
then he
and
certainly
he's justified
was
a free
put through
new
a
camera.
lot.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So then we get into the next real verse. So we all stared at the ball for a while. Our eyes got moist, but I said with a smile, "Kids, this here's what America's all about." Then I started feeling kind of gooey inside. I fell to my knees and I cried and I cried. That's when those security guards threw us out. I bet if we unraveled that sucker, it'd roll all the way down to Fargo, North Dakota, because it's the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. I'm talking about the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota.
So two things here. I love the idea. It's obviously implied that security kicked him out for making a scene
Yeah.
in front of the ball, and I love that idea. But also, just to keep it factually accurate, it does note they arrived at 7:37, and apparently the site closes at 8 o'clock, according to the official documentation. So maybe they just spent their time, and it was like, we're closing up, guys. Imagine the idea: the biggest ball of twine is closing for the night, and there's a man just on his knees sobbing in front of it, and security's like, I'm sorry, but you gotta go.
Yeah, you can't.
We're
be
done.
Here, man.
We're done for the day.
And then finally, we end with this final verse. We stayed that night at the Twine Ball Inn. Yes, get ready. I need you to tell me if that really exists.
It's now closed, but it did exist.
In the morning, we were on our way home again, but we really didn't want to leave. That was perfectly clear. I said, folks, I can tell you're all sad to go. And then I winked my eye and I said, I got a funny feeling we'll be coming back again next year. Because I've been around this great big world and I can't think of anywhere else I'd rather go to than the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. I said the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. 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 Minnesota.
I mean, yeah, it's just, this is so great and wholesome. And, it's funny, like, we talked last week about, and we said before about Al's fondness. So not only fondness for people, this could not be a more lovingly told story about this family. And also, again, just an American, I mean, it's very, like, for him, super on the nose in terms of the commentary of just, like, the actual line saying, kids, this here is what America's all about. Like, this is, and I think he's, in a way, actually, like, not wrong. I think that we have, I think it's a very American thing to have, I might have said some version of this, like, irrational pride in certain things that there's no reason to feel so proud of at all. And that's what this is about. And not only are the people of this town proud of their twine ball so much so that they built a monument to it, but these people are just so honored to be standing in front of it. And it's not as over the top and comedic as the old, like, journey of it is. It's really not that far-fetched a story. I mean, maybe people aren't getting pickled wieners and diet chocolate sodas along the way, but it's this is a real, some family at some point did some version of this in total earnestness without ever having heard this song.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
1,000,000%.
That is truly amazing.
You ready to rank this bad boy?
Almost. We have to note that the people of Darwin, Minnesota, of course, absolutely love this song. They have a Twine Ball Day. They have renamed a road in their town Weird Alley.
Do we need to take the show if we do a live recording?
I mean, if we ever,
we need
have
to
to
hit
take
up
it to
Minnesota. We got to be there for Twine Day.
Yeah, exactly. We're gonna have to be there for Twine Day. There was also a great little Al anecdote where he told a story about how he was on the street in Los Angeles many years ago, and this group of kids started following him from behind, like who looked kind of rough, and he was nervous that he was about to get jumped or something. And instead, they told him that their all-time favorite song was "The Biggest Ball of Twine in Minnesota." And
I love that.
He felt pretty good about that. I believe there's a little bit of mixed information here, but it does seem like this is still the biggest ball of twine ever rolled by a single person.
Okay.
There are other, like, kind of comparative things, like largest ball of twine built by a community. There's one of those in Kansas. The heaviest twine ball is somewhere else, but that's not about the size of the twine. It's the weight of the thing as opposed to the structure. I don't know how all the rules works, but it was finished in 1979. So it had existed for 10 years when Al wrote this song. Okay. And if it wasn't made clear already, it's still there.
All right.
You can still go. It's available. And despite having never been, I feel pretty confident that I can recommend that people go and check this out. I mean, if there's ever an Al pilgrimage, maybe Albuquerque, although Albuquerque is not going to, I don't think you're going to hit the same number of references and markers and all the different, like, you can't, you know what it is? You can reenact the story to this song. You can't reenact the story to Albuquerque.
You can't reenact the story of Albuquerque. And also, as we just learned, even including, you can hit every one of the tourist traps that he's mentioned
You absolutely can.
in the song. You can go to Elvis-orama. You can go to the Mecca of the albino squirrel.
Yes.
So that's pretty amazing.
And there are, as I mentioned, the old Weird Al forum has loads and loads of stories of people who have gone to see the Twine Ball and taken photos and talked about them trying to retrace the steps to the best of their ability. Yeah, I mean, this is so great. And it's so nice. Like, this is a real early, I mean, we can say this in conjunction with the rankings. This feels to me like, I don't know. I mean, obviously he has had hits at this point, but in terms of his original songs and in terms of how beloved they are, with the exception of something like Dare to Be Stupid, like this is a real moment in time for him. Like in terms of something that became like really culty, a fan favorite over many, many years. Like this is a big, it feels to me like a big marker of like a special song that his fans just totally understood the weird sense of humor and story he was going for here. There's no reason for this to be so popular. You know what I mean? Like it's way too long and way too convoluted, and the humor is not that. It's not nearly as funny as Spam is, like out the gate. You know what I mean? It's more subtle.
It's one of those. I think the best way to say it is honestly, I think the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota is truly where you start to separate the casual fan from the diehard fan.
That's a good way to put it.
Because you are like,
that's absolutely right.
When you hit this song at this point in Al's career, you either get what his actual true sense of humor is, or he's just that guy that rewrites songs to be about food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's almost interesting that it's literally coming off of Spam, which is exactly what the cliched version of Weird Al is. That he takes a popular song and makes it about food, and then you follow it up with an almost 7-minute long, chaotic, insane story about a family driving 5 days straight with no sleep to see a giant ball of twine, and then theoretically pack up the car and drive right back home afterwards.
There's it's funny. I absolutely. And I just found this. I'm glad I found it because I almost forgot to say it. Someone did write, based on a very serious analysis of the lyrics to this song, theorized because they don't say where they start. And the theory this person says is...
I was literally just going to ask you what would take 3 days to get to Minnesota.
They started in Bennington, Vermont, and took the shorter but slower I-94 route, which according to Google Maps is a trip of 1,224 miles, unless, say, the family lives 3 miles on the far side of the town, giving them a total trip length of 1,227, that famous number.
Okay.
And will take 23 hours, but that's driving straight through. Travel with kids takes longer, especially this family, which really seems to like to stop along the way. And do we really think that a 1953 DeSoto is going to be able to maintain top interstate freeway speeds? Even at Google speeds, this trip will take 3 days if they stop at night and drive 7 to 8 hours a day. But as for the 50 miles from it, I guess that doesn't line up, but they note that maybe they crossed the state line and saw that sign shortly after passing through Minneapolis. So anyway, as of this person's theory, Bennington, Vermont might make sense based on the details of the trip. But
I love Al's fans.
I know, right? There's
so
a
much.
really, I mean, the extents people have gone to here to try again. People don't even want to go to the Twine Ball. They want to go to the starting place of this story and drive the route the same way. I mean, that is, talk about commitment. That's impressive.
Gotta love that. All right,
Yeah.
So now you must rank this amongst all of these other originals. I think I've roughly figured out my spot, but I'm curious if you've got yours first.
I don't have it quite yet, but I'm very close.
Okay, well then I'll jump in first. Mine
Yes.
did crack the top 10. I obviously don't think that this song is better than UHF still. I think UHF, the title track of the album UHF, is the highlight of this album still. But Biggest Ball of Twine in Minnesota is definitely also a highlight. So I put it in between One More Minute and The Checks in the Mail, which puts it at 9 on my originals list.
9 on your originals. Okay. And I am actually going to rank this a little bit higher. I am putting this at number 7.
Okay.
In between Dog Eat Dog and I'll Be Mellow When I'm Dead. I think, as I said earlier, to me, this feels like a really significant track for Al. I think it's even made more significant, and especially because now we have to rank UHF, the album.
Yes.
I think the fact that this song is so beloved and so popular while being on one of, if not his single least heard records, says a great deal.
Yes.
Right? You know what? Even better, because you mentioned last week, Spam was something you heard on the Food album. I didn't hear UHF for a really long time, but I know this song, and I don't know why. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how anyone ever showed me this, and I should have checked this out. Like, did this make it on permanent record, or like one of Al's compilations?
I think it did. Let me check.
It's on the permanent record Al in the Box collection that came out in 1994, and that I had. So that makes sense. That would have been what it was from that record. Oh, interesting. Okay, so in terms of features on that box set, we have talked about maybe discussing box sets on the show, but the single version of UHF, which is shorter than the album version, is on that. Money for Nothing / Beverly Hillbillies * is on that. Biggest Ball of Twine is on that. Spam is on that, and Generic Blues.
Okay. So pretty much the only ones that we know that he's played live in some way off of this album.
That's correct. Yeah,
made it
yeah.
on there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so the fact that this song has survived and made such an impact despite being on one of the biggest flops of his career, I think that says a lot. And I feel like, as you pointed out at the beginning, he found something in this formula in terms of how he likes to end his records that he stuck with for a very long time. And keep going back to, arguably, we're going to get there later. Maybe he improves on this formula. Maybe he does better work with this long storytelling style as we go down the road. But God, this is just such a great song. At one of the Vanity shows I saw, he opened with this.
Oh, Jesus. What?
The joy that I felt.
All right, so you did hint to it. We've got to rank this album. And it feels really shitty coming off of a song that we have praised so heavily for the last 48 minutes. And last week, we threw a lot of praise at Spam, but I'm putting UHF, the original soundtrack, and other stuff at the bottom of my Al albums rankings. I honestly think that this is maybe a 4 to 5 song EP that I enjoy, and then the rest is just, it's weird, man. Like She Drives Like Crazy, Aisle Thing, the Gandhi 2 sketch that really needs the visual component to fully work.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that miss here. Currently at the bottom of my list is Peter and the Wolf / Carnival of Animals Part 2. I just think that there's so much more interesting stuff happening on that album than on UHF. Keep in mind, I'm putting this at the bottom of my list while simultaneously the title track is my number one Al original right now. So it is. I still think this is an album that people should check out. I think that it's a pity that this is one of the more underperforming albums because there are some great songs in there, specifically Generic Blues. I think Generic Blues is kind of the dark horse track on this album, but that's currently living at my bottom.
Here's the thing. I said this about Peter and the Wolf, and I might have even said it about this earlier, but there's something that I'm so drawn to in when Al does the weirdest things that he does.
Yes.
This is an incredibly strange record, and I truly don't know, and in all of my research I couldn't figure out how much of this is weird accidentally or weird due to weird like movie related licensing issues, like trying to get music crammed together. I actually do think your theory is correct, most likely correct, that Scotti Brothers were like, we need a soundtrack for your movie. You're a musician. Like, how do we not take advantage of a soundtrack? And the movie that Al wrote just did not have that much music in it.
Yeah.
And so it was a scramble at the end to fill this out. And in filling it out, they also wound up doing some strange, they threw in these sketches. I don't personally mind, like Gandhi 2 being on this. I don't mind Spatula City being on this.
I like
or even,
Spatula. I almost think that I wish that there was more sketches.
Yeah, no, I actually do too. I feel like if the biggest problem it has is that it's kind of, it's not, it needs to make up its mind whether it's one thing or the other, and it kind of doesn't. And as you pointed out, it could have been a very short, the music from UHF, and then follow that with a EP of these extra songs. I mean, I'm just looking at the track listing, I think Attack of the Radioactive Hamsters, I think is super, super fun. UHF, we could not have praised any more. Spam is great. Biggest Ball of Twine is great. I like She Drives Like Crazy Against All Odds. And to me, the biggest miss on this record is probably Isle Thing.
Isle Thing's a huge swing and a
which
miss.
Just does not do it for me. I just don't think it's that.
That's definitely one of Al's worst.
That's a very weak parody, I think. And all of this is to say, and I think I'm just a sucker I'm ultimately a sucker for these bold swings, and I do think I'm debating whether or not is this a big bold swing from him musically, or is this a hobbled together thing that feels really weird, because it is. I'm going to put it above Peter and the Wolf.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I'm going to put it just below the first record and just above Peter and the Wolf. Polka Party is still my lowest point. And to be totally honest with you, I was actually pondering whether or not I wanted to put this above the self-titled record. Not even a matter of dropping it lower, yes. And because the self-titled record for me is also kind of hit and miss. I think it's more profound, and I think it's also just a more enjoyable listening experience. I have a real soft spot for UHF. I know a lot of people say that they think this is the weakest album he ever made. I don't feel that way. I obviously don't feel that way because I just ranked it higher. But I think that there's something to be said in seeing him do something so different. And this is so different. And in a way, I as we mentioned before on the sketches, part of me wishes that throughout his career, we had more moments like that on his records, because I actually do find them refreshing and fun, and the whole album just hits different than everything else he has.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see. There's at least 2, maybe even 3 more albums from Al coming up that I could see falling below UHF for me.
Yeah,
but. I don't know. They're more. All 3 of the albums that I'm thinking of in my head are more so just I haven't really revisited them with the consistency that I've revisited something like, Off the Deep End, Bad Hair Day, Running with Scissors are albums that I grew up with and that I have never stopped revisiting. But there are some albums that honestly just in the early 2000s. Poodle Hat and Straight Outta Linwood weren't pushed that hard.
No.
It was really Alpocalypse. I think Alpocalypse was truly the album where everybody just got back on board and was like, Al's fucking great. We need to respect that.
It was definitely, that album was, Alpocalypse, was definitely promoted as a, this guy's back.
Yeah.
Which is just smart marketing, I think, at that point.
But I think that caused, I'm sure when we get to the Poodle Hat and Straight Outta Linwood, I'm thinking of songs that are on it that I'm like, oh, that song's really good. I think it's just albums that I've forgotten how many songs I like are on it. But right now it's I don't know. I could be wrong also. Yeah. I could listen to those and be like, wow, there's more misses on this than I remembered as well.
It's entirely possible.
So that's the fun of doing this. I like that this podcast has really given me an excuse to not just revisit the albums I have loved, but revisit the albums that I have just had collecting dust on the shelf for years.
Totally. And again, to be UHF, weird mixed bag of a record, but I can't deny, the song UHF and Biggest Ball of Twine, those 2 alone.
Yeah. No, they have a lot of power.
Too good. Yeah.
Those are 2 aces for sure.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to have to do a mailbag. We got to know what your guys' thoughts were on UHF. Send us those hot takes. Spoiler alert, if you're listening to this episode, we've probably already recorded that mailbag, but you can still send us a slightly late hot take.
Maybe we can try. I would like to try. We'll see if we can try to record it in that window there. I want to give people a shot to get their messages in. We'll try. We'll see. Worst case scenario, you hear it on the next mailbag when we do off the deep end. There you go.
You will not be silenced by us. We will make sure that your opinions are heard.
We're here to elevate. We're here to lift your voices up to the public. That's what we're doing.
This
here.
podcast is about elevate and celebrate, baby. So stay tuned for even more weird algorithm.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.